Trauma Chat with L&L takes the complexity of trauma and makes it bite-sized.
Our goal is not to minimize it, but to normalize having the conversations about the experiences that many of us have had without always knowing how to cope.
Trauma recovery is possible. Healing from past hurts or even recent hurts is possible.
And we're both trauma therapists, so let's talk about it. A therapist, speaker, author, and owner of Holistic Quest Wellness. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and certified EFT practitioner, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And I specialize in supporting individuals and communities by discovering tools, strategies, and insights to have a better relationship with their thoughts and feelings so that they feel more control in their lives.
And I'm Leticia Vaca Williams, a therapist, speaker, and owner of Urban Health Group, Inc. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm certified in brain spotting, certified in EMDR, and I'm an experienced medical social worker. Urban Health Group is a boutique-style concierge for healthcare navigation and mental health support. Our ultimate goal is to empower Black, Indigenous people of color with tools and supports to effectively navigate their health and mental health needs for better wellness. Maybe this is a great opportunity to talk about the misconceptions, maybe about what we're seeing, like I'm in my villain era, right? Well, I don't care about F this, forget that, I just don't care. I don't care. What are you seeing on your end? Does that provide like a sense of relief for people? Is that because I've heard it a couple times in the past week I'm in my villain era. I was like, well, it sounds like you're taking care of yourself though.
That's a new one for me. I haven't heard I'm in
Okay.
my villain era. I have, let me sit with that. I think I have somebody who is in their villain era now that you give context to that, but we
Yeah.
haven't named it as that. And that is really uncomfortable for them,
Yeah.
right? Like they're doing the work, they're setting the boundaries, they're using assertive communication, and they're like, but I don't like this. This is
Right.
not me. And I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't you.
Right.
And we
It
get
goes
to
back to that association of words. And I said, that's interesting that you'll use I'm in my villain era for something that's actually positive. That's a dysfunctional way of thinking about caring for yourself, of how others may perceive it, right? And so and it's a common theme on social media of like, when you want to do something that maybe other people, you see the little devil emotion or whatever the case may be, when really that's what you want to do, do you have freedom in living the life in the way that you want, or are you always feeling guilty about living the life that you want?
Right, exactly. And typically with people who quote unquote are in their villain era, right? And they're setting these boundaries, they're using assertive communication, creating lifestyles that they desire. From what I've noticed, I can only speak to, my experience is that these people typically are compassionate people anyway.
Yeah.
Like that is who
That's what I'm saying. You ain't gonna
yeah.
become a bad person because you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Like that is who you are at your core. That's never going to go anywhere. But there is this belief that because I'm setting boundaries, I'm no longer. It's like, no, we're just creating balance, right? Like it is a spectrum, and balance is key to thriving. So,
Right. So there's some elements of the words that people are using, and actually the way that people connect to the meaning around it, that has been really interesting. And I see people and resharing, and I'm like, interesting. If you taking care of yourself causes people to be upset with you, causes friction, I understand why people stay in unhealthy relationships if they think it's peaceful. That's dysfunction.
Yeah. And if they believe that they're a villain, if they are not in these kinds of environments, right? Like, especially thinking about the people who typically fall into what we call people pleasing, like over giving, over serving, over showing up. They don't want to be seen as a villain, and being in these kinds of relationships probably feel safest because there's a level of they're getting something from it,
Right. There's some
right?
secondary
There's
gain to that.
something they're getting from it,
Yeah.
that keeps them safe,
Yeah.
or at least the intention is to stay safe. Sometimes it does not align, right? Like
I
they're
think
still
it's to
showing up and
stay connected.
connected.
Because when I'm connected, I believe I'm safe, but I'm not always safe, right? So we look at,
Thank you.
if you come into therapy, you may see there's some attachment
Exactly.
issues.
Exactly. Yeah. Because right, that's that. I love that you said that. Cause I'm like, well, they aren't always safe because they're coming in session and feeling very dysregulated, very unsafe, right? And the dots are not connected.
Yeah. And the concept, we use that word a lot in the work that we do around safety. It's not always like physical safety, but if I say this, will I get a reaction that's scary for me, that's concerning, that may sever things, right? So we're talking about the concept of emotional safety and
Mm-hmm.
well-being and what that looks like when you're in healthy relationship. And that applies healthy relationships, not just even in intimate ones, but with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your lovers, with your coworkers. This tends to be an issue that the person experiences across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at work and then, they looked at me this way. So I know they were bothered with me and now I'm trying to avoid them. You come home and your kid gives you a response and, I'm messing up. I'm a bad parent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so these are not just little nuances. These are like day-to-day issues that are actually impacting the way you see yourself and how you're showing up that may warrant some attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some identity work for
Yeah.
sure. Belief work.
So
Right.
social media can only take you so far. It is a great source of information. Some of it can be helpful, some of it may not apply, and they don't always teach you how to apply these concepts, right? So that's why it could be really important to work with a licensed therapist. What are your thoughts on seeking professional support? And let me
Yes.
ask you this, before becoming a therapist, what might have been your thoughts on seeking professional support?
Ooh, okay. So first question, before becoming a therapist, what were my thoughts on seeking professional support? Um, I can honestly say, I'm trying to think. There, I had thoughts even in the field, early in the field, right? Like I've been in the mental health field for a really long time at this point. But even early in, like, growing up in the inner city where, mental health was definitely stigmatized. It
Yeah.
was white people stuff. Like
Mhm.
we don't do that.
Yeah.
Right. And even in the field and seeing these things and, normalizing it for other people. Um, but when I had some experiences, I honestly fell into the trap of like, no, I should be stronger than this. Right. I witnessed some trauma on a job and like, nope, I'm gonna just push through. Like, it's okay. It's nothing I haven't seen before. I don't
Right.
know why I'm tripping out. Um, and so those are some things that I really had to unpack and go to therapy myself, to get some support, some grounding, so
Yeah.
that I wasn't feeling anxious all the time at work. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say my thoughts on seeking professional support prior to becoming a therapist or getting in the field. I used to think that the more you could stand, the stronger you were.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up in the inner city as well and seeing a lot of stuff, it was like I'm gonna be strong, right?
Yep.
I'm not gonna let this impact me because I need to go where I'm going, right? And for me, my goal, and I see it now, was to get out, run
Mm-hmm.
far away from this place and never come back because what I witnessed was so terrible. I didn't want to be close to it. I now know that that's avoidant, and it is not, it can be healthy to not want to be in unsafe environments, like physically unsafe environments where community violence was a huge issue to the point where it was a state of emergency, right? And think of a little kid witnessing and seeing a
Yeah.
city in turmoil. And for me, strength was like the only way to be. And
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, that is what I took a lot of pride on, is being able to withstand a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that I even was interested in. Well, I want to go back to support people who are in terrible situations because I know they need support. So becoming a medical social worker in a trauma center, I was like, they need someone who can withstand some stuff. And I'm totally neglecting my system.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke out in shingles. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it wasn't always up here. It was always somatic to say, oh, you probably don't need to like be that strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I
you probably need a little break.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I hear you with the word strength, and I always love to reframe that word because I'm like, how strong is it? How much strength does it take to say, yo, I need a break?
Yeah,
Like, like that
yeah,
sometimes it's like the hardest thing to do. Um, which also is the strongest thing to do. And I even tell my clients because they're like, I feel so weak. I'm like, because you're vulnerable, or like let's unpack this. Like what about you working through something really challenging makes you weak? Like help me understand that.
yeah,
um because there's so much strength in like I need a break, or in my situation, like, oh, I'm not okay, like
yeah,
I'm having panic attacks, like, whoa, I gotta
yeah,
sit down somewhere and get some help. Like that is strength,
yeah.
right?
To
For sure.
know what you need to do and to do the healthiest thing for you. But I thought
Yes.
there was two options: strength and weakness.
Right. Yep. Exactly. That was me too. Exactly. I remember my supervisor saying, she said something to me, I can't remember. And I was like, I just don't want to be weak. Like when she asked me, you need some help. I'm like, I don't want to be weak. I was I was probably like 23
Yeah.
at the time, like really young, but still, that was my perception, even in the field.
Hmm.
And I had to unlearn that.
Yeah, and you start looking that there's actually more ways to be between, if you choose strength and weakness as the ends or the
Hmm.
final points of experiences, there's a whole lot that can happen in between that. And you'll never know if you're only fixed with two.
Yeah, that black and white
That
thinking,
black
right?
and white
All,
thinking.
all or nothing.
Right. So being strong was the only way to be. That's the only choice, the only option I gave myself until my system says, well, I don't want to be like this anymore.
Yeah. And I think honestly, we've talked about our backgrounds and where we've come from. In some ways, I do believe that was a strength to have a mindset like I have to push through, I have to be strong, because we could have got swallowed alive. Like that could have
Literally.
been a reality. So in some ways, sometimes, coping strategies that are not adaptive in this season or not helpful in this season definitely were supportive and helped you in one season to survive or get
Right.
through, right?
Right.
So yeah.
And there's the, there's immediate reactions and there's delayed reactions to experiences. So while being strong helped me to do things, it caused issues later down the road where I was only tied to my productivity, right? So when we look
Mhm.
at trauma responses, some of them have some positive consequences and some of them have some negative consequences around, I got a system that will feel like I only am useful as if I am pumping something out,
Mhm.
making magic every day, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that rest can feel unproductive. Um, Mind gets to going, just sitting still
Yeah.
can create a level of discomfort. Listen, we just unpacked lots of good stuff
Please note this is not a replacement for therapy, but we do encourage you to use Trauma Chat with L&L podcast as a part of your wellness plan.
because we want you to have the knowledge you need to take the next steps.
And if any of this resonates with you and you'd like to discover how to move from surviving to thriving, please go to my website at urbanhealthgroupinc.org.
And or my website, holisticquestwellness.co, to connect with a licensed therapist where we provide a variety of mental health services.
Our links are listed below. We'll see you next Monday.